With the massive success of the Chainsaw Man movie just a short couple of months ago, and the conclusion of the My Hero Academia anime, I thought now would be the perfect time to combine the two and give Izuku a chainsaw quirk. I hope you all do enjoy this video. Please comment your what if suggestions down in the comment section below. I will be trying to reply to as many comments as possible. Thank you all for watching, and enjoy! We start this what if off with a tiny baby Izuku sitting in a crib, his small arms reaching outward towards the open air. Nobody is around him. On his chest, we see a small pulley, basically just dangling there, sitting on his chest. Izuku's small baby arms reaching out, reaching for anything to grab, as all of a sudden he grabs that pulley and yanks it out. And in an instant, a chainsaw begins coming out of baby Izuku's head. Screams erupt from the room as blood pools down Izuku's face. His parents rush into the room, looking in horror and in shock as they see Izuku's hands flailing wildly as this chainsaw protrudes out of his head. Within an instant, the chainsaw instantly retracts back into Izuku. However, he still lost a lot of blood. So Inko and Hisashi rush Izuku off towards the hospital. They knew this was bad. I mean, Izuku literally pretty much, he was born with a quirk, but just activated it, and it caused him to lose so much blood. We see Izuku in an intensive care unit with blood pumping into the small child's body as Izuku slowly but surely makes a subtle recovery. We cut forward a couple years to see Izuku now a very, very young child. From this early age, his parents instilled in him very, very vividly, do not pull the pulley on your chest. It is an extremely dangerous and powerful quirk, and no matter what you do, do not pull it. No matter what your friends say or tell you to do, don't do it. You can only do it in a controlled environment. And because of this, Izuku has this very stable sense of self with his pulley. He knows nobody can touch it, and he shouldn't either. It is dangerous. However, this doesn't stop many of the kids, including Bakugo, to be extremely, extremely intent on figuring out what Izuku's quirk is. They know, they've seen this string, this pull tab, dangling from Izuku's chest, and being the young kids they are extremely curious and want to pull it. However, Izuku never lets them. And so we see Izuku basically wanting to be this hero, wanting to be a hero just like in the normal series. However, with his quirk, he doesn't really know what it is. He's never activated it before, so he's not really sure what kind of hero he is. Very similar to how all of his classmates don't know what kind of quirk he has and what kind of hero he could be, if he were to be a hero, that is. So Izuku grows up not knowing what his quirk is. Inko is very, very insistent on Izuku not pulling the tab. However, of course, Izuku, eventually going to be a moody teenager that wants to rebel from his parents, will end up pulling the tab during recess one middle school day. Izuku doing this causes him to transform. His chainsaws will begin just rummaging right through his skin as Izuku starts screaming in pain. They burst through his skin as chainsaws erupt on his arms and right through his face. He's standing there with blood dripping down from his body as once the transformation's complete, he stands there and looks towards his arms. And he looks excited. He's elated. His quirk is awesome. This is something he could use to become a hero. However, his classmates and his teachers, not so much. They see Izuku have this transformation, and they see this blood start draining from his face and from his arms, and they are horrified. What did they just witness? These chainsaws erupted from Izuku's body and sprayed blood everywhere. Izuku retracts the chainsaws as he passes out from blood loss before the teachers call 911, rushing him off to the hospital. With Izuku sitting in the hospital bed, Inko rushes through the door, bursting in, immediately yelling at Izuku. "What did I tell you?" she says extremely loud as the nurses tell her to calm down, holding her back. "I told you never pull that tab. Why? Why can't you just listen to me for once?" she says, tears streaming down her face as Izuku just looks at her and smiles. "You've been hiding this from me this entire time? My quirk is awesome. Why would you hide this from me? I'm gonna be the best hero ever," Izuku says, so happy a smile streamed across his face, a giant one, just like All Might's. However, Inko shakes her head. "You have no idea what you're doing, Izuku. You have no idea," she says to him as Izuku doesn't care. He is ready. He is so happy, and this is his big ticket into the hero world. However, the nurses sitting next to him would shake their head as well. "I wouldn't be so sure, kid," they say, putting an arm on his shoulder. "Your quirk there causes you to lose a lot of blood. And in order for you to use it, you need to have blood as well. I don't know where a hero is going to amount such a large quantity of blood without killing someone. But if you find a way to do that, be my guest, become a hero, and the best one you can be," they say. We cut forward a couple of days later as Izuku is discharged from the hospital. We see him pondering at his desk, flicking his fingers back and forth. What can I do? What can I do? Izuku thinks to himself, pondering. If I lose a lot of blood with my quirk, then I need a way to get blood. He rips out his computer, vigorously typing all over it. Is there a way maybe for synthetic blood? Can I draw blood? Does my body regenerate it? All these things this 12-year-old boy is researching, trying to find ways to do it. And of course he finds it. The body regenerates blood extremely quickly. Red blood cells not so much, but still, he can draw blood from his body and stockpile it and cool it so that he can keep it safe and useful, so that way when he activates his quirk, he can drink this blood and continue to use it without getting hurt. As well, he also researches that there are synthetic bloods in basically development, but they're not too safe yet. Izuku thinks for a moment before wondering, maybe if I can get into UA, I can use synthetic blood. Maybe it'll help me get it, he thinks. His face and his eyes are so invigorated. All this research is just enlightening and sparking a flame of passion within him. He is going to be a great hero, he thinks to himself. So with that, Izuku rushes out the door, beginning to go to basically any store he can find. He wants to find ways to basically be able to draw blood from himself. And of course, that's hard stuff to come by anyway. It's not much for a 12-year-old boy, in fact. This 12-year-old kid wants to find stuff to draw blood. This seems kind of sketchy, many people think to themselves, which leads Izuku to spend all of his Christmas money finding some grown adult in a back alley to go buy him something to draw blood and gather it into a bag for him. So with his set materials collected, Izuku rushes back to his house, hiding in his dark room, drawing blood from his arms and storing it in a bag. He places them inside a cooler under his bed in a dark place that stays cool before going to sleep. Izuku's plan for the next day was to practice his quirk and use the blood for it. So with that, Izuku heads off to Daeguba Beach, a largely abandoned beach covered in trash. Izuku reaches towards the bag of blood, pushing it and basically drinking it like it's a Capri Sun, as he then pulls the tab. Blood squirts from his chainsaws as they erupt from his body. He feels and just looks powerful. He rushes towards all of the trash, slicing it with his chainsaw, cutting it with ease. As He ends up retracting all the chainsaws and smiling, looking at the damage he's caused to the beach. This is awesome, Izuku thinks to himself. I'm gonna be such a good hero. My quirk, it's amazing. So Izuku continues to work on his quirk for years and years until it is finally time for Izuku to go to the UA entrance exam. With practically 2 to 3 years of training using his quirk, it is the most anybody has been able to do besides, say, Todoroki. As, of course, kids aren't allowed to use their quirks in public. They can practice them in private, but a lot of the really powerful quirks are amateurs. They couldn't practice these, say for Bakugo, he couldn't practice his explosions out in public, while Izuku was only able to practice it because of the abandoned beach, giving him a step up in his competition. As Izuku sits down at his desk and Present Mike hands out the written portion of the tests, Izuku passes them with flying colors, his hands flying through his pencil, vigorously writing down every single answer as he turns it in. He's jittery, he's excited, and he's anxious. He can't wait to show off his amazing quirk to everybody else. As it's time for the physical portion of the UA entrance exam, Izuku is bouncing up and down. He is prepared. He is ready. The doors open as he reaches down, pulling that pull tab, transforming as his chainsaws erupt from his body. He starts shaking from the pain, but it's largely just minuscule now. Izuku has used it so very much that the pain is almost non-existent to him. He still is sharp and it feels it, but he's gotten used to it. It's almost like a flick to the chest. His pain tolerance has gotten to be through the roof. As Izuku pulls the tab, his chainsaws appear. He rushes out instantly, using at speed and using his strength, chopping down robot for robot, his chainsaws easily shredding through the metal. The UA teachers look on in shock. This looks insane. This kid not only has some sort of transformation quirk, but it is extremely strong. As Izuku cuts through all of them, he reaches down, replacing one of his chainsaws back into his body, reaching down with one of his hands, grabbing one of his blood Capri Suns, drinking it completely, extremely fast, as he puts the bag back into his pocket, replacing his chainsaw again. He's replenished as he goes in and continues chopping up robots. All of a sudden, however, the ground starts shaking. He sees many of the participants of the test looking up in horror. Izuku looks up just the same as he sees a giant robot towering over the entire city, looking down. Izuku smirks to himself, thinking this will be fun. He jumps up, his chainsaws in the air, slashing into the robot's head, just completely demolishing its head as he slashes a hole right through the head, jumping in, cutting all of the circuits and the circuit boards, causing the robot to start jittering. It's malfunctioning. Izuku then appears, bursting through of it, screaming. He's excited, he's invigorated, as he jumps down, landing on a roof as the robot falls down. A horn blares as the test is over, as all of the other participants are looking at Izuku in shock. Many of them think to themselves, yeah, that kid's going to Class 1A for sure. He definitely made it. I mean, that robot was barely worth any points, if any, and he did that just for the love of the game. That is awesome, many of them think to themselves. Izuku walks out smiling as he meets up with Bakugo. The two of them high-five as they both tell each other how they did on the test. "So you think you got in?" Izuku says. Bakugo smirks. "You're really gonna ask me that? I know I got in," Bakugo says confidently and arrogantly. Izuku smiles. "What about me? You think I got in?" Bakugo just shakes his head. "Oh, please. You've been managing to practice that quirk of yours for years. You probably got in with flying colors," Bakugo says exaggeratingly. Izuku smirks as the two of them walk home together. With that, Izuku sits in his room, waiting patiently for the mail to arrive. Upon the mail coming, Inko knocks on his door. Izuku, honey, it's here, she says, almost unsure. With what she experienced as Izuku being a baby and then in middle school, she really didn't want Izuku to become a hero. I mean, like, she saw her baby almost die to this quirk, and then again in middle school where he didn't listen to her. And now all of a sudden he's this pro taking out his own blood and keeping it and storing it and then using it later. It's just all so weird to her and foreign, and she's just unsure of it. She doesn't want to lose her only baby to the hero world and doesn't want her baby to die at the hands of his own quirk. So because of that, she's unsure, but still hands the letter to Izuku. Izuku opens the letter up, and it says accepted. He is in to Class 1A. He smiles before jumping and pumping his fist. Yes, Izuku says confidently. I knew I'd get in. I knew it. Izuku places the letter on his desk as Inko hugs him. Congratulations, sweetie, she says, a subtle, small tear dripping from her left eye. She sighs, patting him on the back. I knew you could do it. I knew it, she says, before walking off to her room, with Izuku getting ready to go to bed. The next couple of weeks pass as Izuku continues to train, preparing for his first day of 1A. He gets into school wearing his uniform, looking all spiffy as he walks in, sitting down with all of the students looking at him. They recognize him. I mean, this is the kid with the insane chainsaw quirk. He sits down next to Bakugo as Kirishima introduces himself to the two of them, saying that they both had two of the coolest quirks he's ever seen. Izuku and Bakugo nod their head as they they're like, yeah, we do have a cool quirk and we're going to become the best dang heroes you've ever seen. As they're sitting there, Aizawa walks through the door yelling for all the students to be quiet. He sits down at his desk before looking towards all of them. I expect all of you at Lot E in 30 minutes. If any of you are late, you're expelled. All the students look there, looking around. What? Expelled? They think to themselves before rushing off. None of them were going to be the one kid to be late and have their dreams crushed beneath themselves. No way, they think to themselves, rushing off. With all of the class arriving towards the lot, they all do the quirk apprehension tests. Izuku manages to pass the race very easily. However, when it comes to the ball, not so much. He transforms into his chainsaw form before he grabs the ball with one hand. He only uses a chainsaw on his right, holding the baseball in his left. He tosses it up before he slams the chainsaw into it as it goes flying, at least for the first 150 meters or so before falling back down. It went only so far as Izuku could pretty much swing a baseball. The rest of the class would go, with Bakugo getting first with 700 meters in the baseball and first in the race time as well, with Bakugo basically being touted as one of the best all-around quirks. So Izuku and the rest of his class walk back, changing in the locker rooms before going home. Aizawa dismissed them after the quirk apprehension test, deciding, you know what, maybe I won't expel anyone this year, he thinks to himself. So with Aizawa letting all the students go, they walk back pretty much excited. They can't wait. All of them are in UA, and this is their chance to be awesome heroes. Izuku and his class walk into school the next day to see All Might standing at the podium. I am your teacher, he says, pointing his finger in the air, some of the students cracking laughs and cringing at All Might's very cringe-worthy expression. All Might then hands each of the students their hero costumes that they designed the first day of his class before Aizawa had walked into the building, and then hands them to him and tells him to meet down at a certain building. Upon getting there, all of the students are then paired up. Izuku with Uraraka and Bakugo with Todoroki. And so Izuku and Uraraka are placed as the villains, and Bakugo and Todoroki are placed as the heroes. Uraraka and Izuku walk into the building looking at the payload. They look at this giant shaped device before Izuku touches it. So we just can't let them capture us or touch this device, Izuku thinks to himself. That shouldn't be too hard, right? Uraraka nods her head, pumping her fist. Yeah, we got this, she says as the timer begins. Bakugo and Todoroki rush into the building. Izuku holds his blood packs on his side as Uraraka looks down towards him. She points towards the mysterious dark liquid as Izuku tells her, "Oh, it's he hesitates. It's blood." Uraraka recoils. What? Blood? Why do you need blood? She thinks to herself and then says out loud. Izuku, slow to tell her, but says, "Well, my quirk needs it. My chainsaws, they actually rip through my own face, and that causes a lot of blood to pour down, and I lose a lot of blood when I do it, and I need it to regenerate." Uraraka nods her head slowly, trying to understand. Okay, I mean, that makes sense, but it's kind of creepy, she thinks to herself, turning away from Izuku. Izuku hears explosions and sparks flying as he pulls his pulley. Blood spews from his face and arms as his chainsaws appear. Uraraka watching in horror. She hadn't been one of the few people to see his transformation in the UA entrance exam and wasn't paying attention during the first day of class, so she didn't get to see the horrors of his transformation. As Izuku transforms, he rushes out the door, sprinting, looking for Bakugo. He's never had a chance to face off against him, and this sounds invigorating. Izuku finds Bakugo standing across from him. As he jumps in, his chainsaws weaving through the air as Izuku slices through cleanly one of Bakugo's gauntlets. The gauntlet falls into two, dropping to the floor with a heavy thump as Bakugo stares on in horror. I still have this one, he thinks, instantly pulling the gauntlet trigger as an explosion launches towards Izuku. He's sent flying backwards with a hole appearing in his side. Bakugo looks in shock and in horror. He had just caused a hole to appear in Izuku's chest. But Izuku shakes it off with ease, grabbing one of his Capri Suns with a now free arm and putting it into his mouth, popping it like it's some sort of gusher. As he drinks the blood, his chest regenerates as Bakugo stares on in shock and as well horror. Oh my gosh, he thinks. Izuku's way more powerful than I thought he was. He can just repair that so easily, he thinks, as Izuku jumps in with his chainsaw at the ready, cutting the other gauntlet. Bakugo now, with just his bare hands, goes in, sending explosions towards Izuku. However, Izuku and his speed manage to dodge it. He uses his chainsaw, riding the wall with his chainsaw embedded into it, riding towards Bakugo before kicking him in the head, knocking him out. Uraraka sees that Izuku sees that Bakugo is knocked out as he races back towards Uraraka, where he sees her struggling mightily against Todoroki. Her feet are frozen as she reaches out towards him. He's across the room, staring towards her, telling her to just get out of his way. Izuku jumps in with his speed, slashing the ice off of her feet as she jumps up, thanking him before rushing off towards the device, grabbing it, making it weightless, and rushing out the door. That was their plan all along, after all. Izuku was going to take care of both Bakugo and Todoroki, and Uraraka was supposed to protect and hide the device. With the device gone, Todoroki goes to turn around, but Izuku is right there with him, going to slash right towards his face. However, Izuku's chainsaw was too close. He meant to just slash and give Todoroki just a small cut to basically intimidate him. However, Izuku mistimed it. Todoroki wouldn't continue stepping backwards, leading to his face being way too close to Izuku's chainsaw. The chainsaw would rip into Todoroki's skin, as Izuku would instantly jump back trying to retract it, but it was too late. A giant gouge would be sitting there in Todoroki's face, smiling, reaching towards his lips, almost like half of his face was the smile of the Joker. This hole would just start spewing out liquid as Izuku would stare on in horror. He would instantly retract all of his blades, running towards Todoroki as he would touch his now scarred other side of his face, feeling the liquid pool down from him as he would pass out from shock. All of the students are completely completely confused. Did Izuku do this on purpose? There's no way. You saw how he reacted. But still, he vitally hurt Todoroki. All Might rushes in, using his speed and his strength, punching a hole through the wall, picking up Todoroki's body and rushing him off towards Recovery Girl, as Izuku would sit there, just completely lifeless and numb. Had he really just done that? He made sure to be extra careful with Bakugo, but then with Todoroki, he managed to cut him, and cut him so close to his head. If he was any closer, he could have killed him. Izuku thinks to himself, I can't believe I did that. Uraraka would stand there in horror, having witnessed it firsthand. She hid the device and came back to help Izuku before seeing Izuku slash right into Todoroki's face, the chainsaw spewing out this liquid everywhere. She was also just completely shocked, looking at Izuku sitting on his knees, his hands in his lap as he stared at them, before Uraraka would slowly take a step back and rush out the building. We cut to see Izuku in Nezu's office, Nezu with a solemn but stern look on his face. Look, Izuku, what happened today? I've watched the tapes. I know it's an accident. But you gotta know who you did this to. This is the son of Endeavor, the number 2 hero, and what you did, it's no slouch, it's no small cut. He's going to be scarred like that for the rest of his life. And I just don't know if I can say that can happen at UA again. I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt and give you a warning here, but if you let something like this happen again, I'll be forced to expel you. I already have Endeavor down my back. I mean, he's been training his son for years, and he's a first year after all. He wasn't expecting his son to get so hurt this fast into UA. It's just unacceptable. Izuku nods his head, his heart pounding. It feels like he has butterflies in his stomach. He's already on his last straw. He made one small mistake, and now he's about to be on the outs, about to be just completely out from his hero dream. There's just no way, right? Right? Izuku thinks to himself, standing up and nodding his head. I understand, Nezu. He says, his voice cracking. It feels as though he wants to cry, but no tears can come out. Izuku walks back out of the school, some of the students hearing the incident that had happened, with many of them staring on, looking at Izuku, looking at him like he's some sort of freak. Izuku looks at these people staring at him as this feeling, it doesn't feel good. Something in Izuku's chest, it's hurting. All these people, it seems as though they're disgusted by him, they hate him. Izuku looks around just completely in shock. There's just no way. There's just no way, right? Izuku gets back home, telling his mother what had happened as she comforts him. It's okay, Izuku. I told you your quirk is dangerous. You just have to be more careful next time. It won't happen again, she says, as Izuku nods his head. Yeah, it won't happen again. Izuku walks back into school the very next day as their next assignment was the USJ training portion. They were going to go on a field trip and go train at the USJ with Hero 13. With all of them on the bus, the only two people that would sit next to Izuku were Bakugo and Kirishima. They knew Izuku didn't mean it, and they knew it was an accident. And besides, that's what happens when you want to be a hero. Mistakes. And they didn't blame Izuku for it whatsoever. With that, Izuku just smiles softly. "Thanks, you guys," he says to them. "I knew I could count on you." The others, he stares on, looking around the bus. Not so much. Many people looking at him with cold glances, especially Yaozu and Ida. They didn't think someone that wanted to be heroic would do so much damage to a fellow classmate. Todoroki wouldn't be here, still in the hospital with bandages over his newly fresh healed scar, as Izuku and the rest would stay on the bus, arriving at the USJ. Izuku and his friends would pile off as they walked into the building, 13 greeting them, looking around as she would show them the entire USJ, opening up her arms wide. "This is the USJ," she says to them as they all marvel at it. "Here you are going to be given all sorts of different types of She gets interrupted. A portal opens up as villains start spewing out, as well as underneath our young heroes' feet, spreading them out across the USJ. Bakugo, Kirishima, and Izuku get placed in some sort of disastrous city. We see villains surrounding them, punching their fists, cracking their knuckles, ready to fight. Izuku, Bakugo, and Kirishima look towards each other. Is this a test? There's just no way, right? They would have told us about this. Izuku pulls his lever on his chest as his friends prepare for battle as well. The villains charge. Izuku and Bakugo and Kirishima all rush in. Kirishima hardening his hands, punching villain after villain. Bakugo sending explosion after explosion towards them as well. Izuku, Bakugo, Kirishima all taking down these villains with ease. However, Izuku had a lot harder of a time. He was nervous and he couldn't really do anything. Every time he went in to slash one of the villains and try to do it carefully just to incapacitate them, he couldn't. He couldn't. He was scared. He was scared he was going to do another Todoroki. And even if these people were real villains, heroes don't hurt. They don't kill villains. He couldn't do anything. He stood there almost sort of confused, dazed almost, replaying the Todoroki incident in his head, as both Bakugo and Kirishima tried to comfort him, but it was no use. Izuku would drink one of the Capri Suns before retracting his chainsaws. I can't do it," Izuku says to himself, shaking his head. I just can't. We cut over to see Ida rushing out of the USJ, telling all of the UA teachers that they need help. Desperate help. With that, we see All Might rush in and the regular events of the USJ play out. Aizawa and some of the students defeat many of the large amounts of thugs, while All Might takes care of the Nomu. With that, the USJ incident is complete. All of the students are fine, maybe some with minor injuries, having taken care of many of the villains. They proved their worth as UA students, and they were dang good too, managing to take out hundreds upon hundreds of villains. However, one student hadn't. Izuku. He was still kind of shaken. He was shell-shocked with the Todoroki thing, and it was almost as if he didn't want to use his quirk anymore. So with that, Izuku heads back home after the long day. Before he would begin opening up to his mom about it, he told her about how there was a villain attack, and yet despite them being villains, he couldn't use his quirk on them. Something was holding him back. As his mother just hugs him, "It's okay, Zuko. You'll get over it. You're gonna be the best hero you possibly can be. You're gonna be that hero. Just embrace it. I was so scared that you would just die because of your quirk, and you proved yourself not to. You proved yourself to be capable of using your quirk, using your power, and now I know for a fact that you can be a hero." Izuku looks towards his mother, smiling, tears coming out of his eyes. "You're right. I just have to embrace it. I have to embrace who I am. It was an accident after all," Izuku's shaking voice says as his mother pats him on the back. That's the spirit, Izuku. Hugging him, holding the back of his head. That's the spirit. Izuku smiles, walking into class as his sort of inability to use his quirk is gone. With hero classes passing each day, day by day, Izuku manages to use his quirk. A big feat coming from the USJ incident where he couldn't even use it against villains. So with Izuku having gotten back the ability to use his quirk after the almost PTSD incident with Todoroki, we now see that it is time for the UA Sports Festival. Izuku now extremely prepared, but in a little bit scared. I mean, his quirk doesn't exactly scream hero after all, especially with him popping these blood Capri Suns and blood gushers all the time. So with the UA entrance exam on the horizon, Izuku's nervous. I mean, all these people are going to be watching him using his quirk and using it for basically good to try and win, but it's could get ugly. He's scared. What if he hurts another person? So a couple of days pass as Izuku and his classmates walk into UA extremely prepared. They are ready. It is the day of the UA Sports Festival. The first event goes by without any hitch. I mean, Izuku passes it with ease. He transforms into chainsaws and uses his speed to easily pass through any obstacle, jumping over the large crater and the robots, easily destroying it just like he did at the entrance exam. The cavalry battle, not so much. Izuku wasn't exactly sure how to use his quirk, however, him and Bakugo, as well as Kirishima, were able to become a team. With Izuku on top, he would use his quirk, basically just sitting there menacingly. His whole tactic was intimidation, with his chainsaws revving and massively going, and all of the students pretty much hearing through rumors how he had managed to hurt the number 2 hero's son, Todoroki. No one wanted to go through him, even if he had the 10 million point headband. They were scared of him, and his chainsaws only further promoted that thinking. Izuku looked devilish, almost, standing up there, holding his chainsaws out as if trying to invite someone to come in, trying to invite someone to come get them, but at the same time knowing that no one had the gall and no one had the guts to. So this led Izuku's group to get first place, just like Izuku got first place in the race, leading us to the third and final event of the UA Sports Festival, the 1v1 event. Izuku would sit on facing off against Uraraka. Izuku would look towards her, knowing her quirk, knowing it isn't very good for combat, and he knew how she was at most very scared of him. I mean, she saw the blood gushers and saw the Todoroki incident, and just the way she's acted around him, she was a little bit terrified and had a little fear of him, and he didn't want to really help that in any way. He didn't want to further that fear. So with the round beginning, Izuku would begin walking towards her. "It's okay, Uraka. I'm not gonna hurt you. he says, before Uraraka yells at him to stay back, her hand outstretched with her fingertips reaching towards Izuku. I saw what you did, she says. They begin circling the arena. I know what you did, Todoroki. That couldn't have been an accident. It was no accident. Izuku shakes his head at her. What are you talking about? That was an accident. Why do you think it wasn't? No, there's no way. There's just no way you could hurt one of your friends, one of your classmates like that, she says as she begins rushing at him. A feat of heroism, basically coming over her, rushing towards Izuku as Izuku takes a step back. What are you doing? He says. She gets in, reaching towards him as Izuku punches her across the face. She misses Izuku with her fingertips because of this as Izuku takes a step back. Just stop. You can't win, Izuku says, looking towards her as she gets up again. You're a villain, she says, looking at him in his eyes. You did that on purpose. You did it on purpose, didn't you? She says, Izuku now completely confused and shocked. No. Why? He says, his voice soft, getting confused. Why would I ever do that on purpose? She rushes at him again as Izuku punches her right across the face again. This continues, Uraraka digging into Izuku, telling him how he is nothing. He is a villain. She is scared. She's trembling at this point, shaking. But she continues. It is her duty as a hero to take down villains, and in her mind, Izuku is one of them. She saw it with her eyes in person, and there is just no way a hero would do that to a fellow hero, even if it's a training exercise. With one final blow to the face, Izuku knocks Uraraka out, clean unconscious. As the bell sounds, Izuku takes a step off. He's shaken. He had just been interrogated by Uraraka and basically just announced, being told he was a villain. The crowd was confused. Uraraka rushes towards him and Izuku didn't even use his quirk. Of course, they couldn't hear the dialogue of the two students, but they were very confused. I mean, it looked like it was very passionate, very just focused. Izuku steps off, going back into the locker room, his hand in his head, breathing heavy. There's no way, right? I mean, but if she thinks I'm a villain, someone else has to as well, right? Izuku thinks to himself. As it's time for Izuku's next round to begin, versus Ida, Izuku steps up to the podium again. He's standing on the arena as the horn sounds. Izuku looks towards Ida as Ida uses his engines and rushes towards him, going in for a flying kick as Izuku pulls his tab, blocking his kick with his chainsaw. As Ida visibly recoils back, looking at Izuku, just confused as Izuku's chainsaw starts ripping into Ida's leg a little bit. Blood squirts out onto Izuku's face. Ida jumps back, wincing in pain as he's shocked. You're not going to do the same thing you did to Todoroki or to me, are you? He says, his eyes glaring at Izuku. What? Why would I do that? Izuku says as Ida jumps towards him, going for another kick. Izuku again blocking it with this chainsaw. Ida looks towards him, looking at him in his eyes. A true hero wouldn't hurt a friend. Going in for another kick, swiveling around, hitting Izuku in the back of the head, knocking him down. Izuku would put one of his chainsaws on the ground, standing up with it, as he looks on towards Ida, rushing in for another attack. Izuku raises his hand, his chainsaw flying down, coming down towards Ida. Ida stops in his tracks, as if inviting Izuku to slash him down. Izuku's chainsaw retracts as he goes in, his hand flailing towards Ida, punching him right in the neck, causing him to stumble back, falling down, before Izuku would kick him in the head, knocking him out unconscious again. This was all so weird. This is the second person calling him a villain, and he was nothing but nice to these people. It was just weird. And then Ida stopping mid-attack, almost asking him to cut him, to hurt him. Something's not right, Izuku says. Walking back onto the arena for the final match, we see Izuku versus his old friend, Bakugo. The two of them stare on, with Izuku smirking a little bit. So, this is what the final comes to, he says, looking towards Bakugo as the two smirk. I guess it is, he says. The two of them crack their knuckles before the horn sounds, with both of them rushing on towards each other. This will be fun, the two of them think, as Bakugo sends explosion after explosion barreling towards Izuku as Izuku dodges. He knows he can't use his quirk all too much, as he's not allowed to have his blood with him during the UA Sports Festival. He could regenerate it during the intermissions and during, after his battles are done, but he can't use it mid-battle, so he has to make sure he doesn't get hit by one of Bakugo's explosions. As Izuku jumps and dodges around, weaving through Bakugo's attacks, he slashes Bakugo with his chainsaws, making sure to only give him small cuts, but using it as sort of a defense mechanism. Bakugo knows if he gets too close, he'll be slashed dangerously, and he wasn't going to have that. He wasn't going to have one of his best friends hurt him and prove to the world that he wasn't meant to be a hero. Prove to the rest of his class that they and their assumptions about him were right. Bakugo just couldn't do that to him. There's no way. With each explosion passing by and Izuku jumping back, dodging each one, finally he goes in, slashing now on the offensive, Bakugo having to continue to jump back. Izuku would then use his chainsaws almost like a flat-faced sword, slashing, trying to hit him almost like it's a baseball bat, managing to hit a couple of blows, causing Bakugo to fall down to one knee, breathing heavily. He does, sitting down on the floor, completely exhausted, having eviscerated all his options with his quirk until one final explosion. This is it, Bakugo thinks to himself, reaching towards Izuku, having drawn him in close enough, reaches towards him, sending out his one final giant explosion. Izuku, seeing no way to dodge it, he reaches his chainsaw up and tries to slash through it. Slashing right through it, as all of a sudden he hears his chainsaw hit something. Bone. Izuku sees the explosion completely dissipate, the clouds and smoke gone, as he stands there and sees the chainsaw ripping through Bakugo's forearm, cutting his arm off. Izuku retracts his chainsaw again, looking on in horror, as his worst nightmare had just happened. He had cut Bakugo's forearm off. Bakugo sits there completely shocked. What he didn't want to happen, what he knew couldn't happen, just happened. The worst scenario, the worst nightmare had just occurred, and in front of all of the audience's eyes. They gasp in horror, seeing the blood fly out as Recovery Girl rushes out onto the scene, putting the arm onto Bakugo's arm and stitching it up fast before kissing him multiple times, allowing the arm to reattach, the stitches blending back in. Izuku, covered in the liquid and the blood of Bakugo's arm, is shocked. I can't believe that, Izuku says to himself. That wasn't supposed to happen. We see Izuku standing on the first place podium as the crowd boos him. They just sat there in horror. They all were just traumatized, and yet he was the victor. He's no hero, many of them think to themselves. Izuku looked almost like a dead man walking. He knew what was about to come. As Izuku sat in the locker room, Just his hands and his head in his hands. Bakugo patting him on his back, funnily enough, with the arm Izuku had cut off. They knew what was about to happen. Aizawa would walk into the locker room. Izuku, Nezu wants to speak with you for a moment in his office. He says softly and solemnly. Izuku nods, breathing in. I understand, he thinks to himself, walking into the office. As he sits down, Nezu looks at him. I understand why you're here. Or, Izuku, I understand why I'm here, he says towards Nezu as Nezu nods his head. Yeah. I gave you a chance, Izuku. And yet, you have not only managed to basically lose that opportunity, but you've also hurt two of our finest and brightest students. I once considered you one of those bright top 3 students of the class, but now I just think you're far too dangerous to be around, to have the classes around. For everybody else's sake, I have to make this decision. I hope you accept it and will be going on with your life. Nezu says as Izuku has tears streaming down from his face. His opportunity, his chance to be a hero, it was up. It was over. He isn't accepted here anymore. Nezu slides a paper across, notice of expulsion, with a small sign here at the bottom. Izuku grabs the pen and signs it before a tear hits the paper, smudging part of his signature. He slides the pen paper back over to Nezu before stepping out of the classroom. He sees Aoyama standing there looking in shock. What happened, Izuku? He says, I've been expelled for hurting Bakugo and Todoroki, he says before walking off. Aoyama smirks to himself before going on and grabbing his phone, texting somebody, texting them that this kid had just been expelled and this was the perfect opportunity. Izuku, on his walk back home, he ends up getting stopped by a mysterious figure. Hey kid. Huh? Izuku thinks to himself before this guy would walk out from the alleyway. I saw what happened on the television. It was something. Izuku says, yeah. Tell me about it. Aren't you a member of UA, right? I mean, you were at the UA Sports Festival. Why are you still here? Shouldn't you be celebrating with your friends? Oh, not anymore, Izuku says. I was expelled for that. Really? You were expelled? You had to be one of the best students there. I mean, you won the whole sports festival for the first years. Yeah. Oh well, Izuku says, his voice still cold. I mean, he can't believe it, and he's just so completely sad. He can't deal with this. It's a loss so immeasurable to him. All his life, he had trained and wanted to be a hero, and now that's over. Look, I know you wanted to be a hero, but there's other ways to be a hero other than that. Izuku perks up, his ears listening intently. What do you mean, other ways to be a hero? Well, you see it. The society is flawed. They tossed you away like garbage, like trash, because of accidents. They didn't want you because of accidents, because of your quirk. However, if you come with me, we will accept you. We will show you what true heroism is. Izuku looks towards him before grabbing his hand. Enlighten me, Izuku says. Such low from being expelled from his dream school, from having his dreams crushed, flipped a switch in Izuku's brain. I mean, this basically allowed Izuku to be so low that he could be manipulated. As Izuku steps through a portal, not even recognizing it as the same portal from the USJ incident, he steps into a bar. The League of Villains surrounds him before they introduce themselves. Izuku looks around. So, what is this place? Well, this is our hideout after all. Society doesn't really accept us all too much. I mean, we're cast outs. My cork, if I touch anything with my 5 fingertips, they decay into dust. Toga's, if she drinks the blood of someone, she can turn into them. He goes around this list, showing Izuku all the members of the League of Villains before introducing themselves. Although our name may be the League of Villains, we are no villains. We just want to change society, change it for the better, allow everybody to have a chance to be someone, not cast out from society because they're corkless or their cork is villainous in any way. So you're villains, not heroes. I should have known, Izuku says, shaking his head, as Shigaraki stops him before Izuku can walk out the door. Don't be so quick to action, kid. Those heroes didn't want you. You saw the way they treated you. The disgust they looked at you. What they thought of you. They hated you. You hurt members of their ranks, even if it was on accident. And because of that, they cast you aside. They threw you out to the curb like garbage. But you're not garbage. You're something special. And you need to use that. You need to use it. Izuku stops in his tracks. Yeah, you're right. I am special. And I do need to use it. Let's change this world. For the better, Izuku says. As with that, he disappears, leaving his life behind. Bakugo, who went to Izuku's house the day he got expelled to just basically apologize for being in that spot, allowing Izuku to chop his arm off, couldn't find him. Inko said he never came home after the sports festival. She thought he was just partying. She didn't even know he was expelled. And with that news, she was horrified. Completely and utterly horrified. I mean, Izuku is missing. Her baby is missing, and he's expelled from UA. And she starts to think the worst. Could he have done this on purpose? Did he run away because his dreams of being a hero were crushed? There's just no way. There's no way, right? Not by Izuku. Her worst fears were becoming reality. Her baby boy had been lost to his cork, to society. So with that, Izuku and the League of Villains begin introducing themselves. They basically learn, they become friends, and no one becomes friends like Izuku and Toga. I mean, they both have blood-related quirks. Toga drinks the blood of her enemies and can transform into them, while Izuku drinks his blood to regenerate. So with this subtle similarity, they become very, very good friends, instantly bonding. They are very, very good together, and they use their quirks intertwined almost together. We see a couple of weeks pass as the internships, UA final exams, all of these pass as the Class 1A goes on smoothly. Many of the students happy that villainous Izuku is gone, no longer around. So with that, Izuku and the League of Villains begin planning the infiltration of the forest training camp. Ayama basically telling them all about it and giving them details. So leading up to it, Izuku and all of the League of Villains walk through this portal. It's nighttime, and the raid on the forest training camp begins. Their whole thing was to try and kidnap a couple of these heroes to try and turn them into villains. None more than, say, Bakugo. His fiery personality, although a little bit more mellow than it is in the regular timeline, is extremely positive to them. It's appealing, and so they want to capture him. Izuku, wearing a mask, walks around basically looking for anybody he can find when he stumbles upon Uraraka and Ida. He stares them down as they both get ready for combat, thinking to themselves, a villain! It's a villain! They get ready, they get prepared, as Izuku looks towards them before he pulls up his shirt, revealing that all too familiar pull tab. Both Uraraka and Ida's hearts drop. There's no way. Were they right? Is Izuku really a villain? He pulls it as his chainsaws appear, as he begins speaking to them. You all hated me. For an accident. Both those events were accidents. And yet you cast me aside like I was trash. It was an accident. All I wanted to be was a hero, Izuku says. But yet you never treated me like one. You never gave me a chance. And now look what you've made me. Look what I've become because of you, because of your decisions. They look towards Izuku, shocked. There's no way. There's just no way. Izuku jumps towards them, slashing his chainsaw towards them. As Izuku basically cuts through them, slicing and dicing, trying, fueled by his pain, and he wants them to experience that pain too. Izuku slices off two of Uraraka's fingertips, making sure her quirk becomes as useless as possible, as he then goes to Ida, slicing off parts of his engine before disappearing back into the forest. As the two of them looked completely shocked. What the heck just happened? As they would both pass out, their quirks being damaged by Izuku, and the shock and the confusion of seeing a former classmate come in and damage them and hurt them. Despite labeling him as a villain, he still was in Class 1A, and that was just unheard of to see someone like a villain that used to be in UA. As the night continues on, they capture Bakugo as they bring him back to the League of Villains base. Izuku hides, wearing a mask, not wanting Bakugo to see what he has become, almost ashamed of it in a way. As Bakugo stands there, he ends up seeing over the TV screen talks about the villains that attacked the UA training camp over the news. He then hears something terrifying. It is said to believe that a former UA student has in fact attacked two UA members here, actually. Both Uraraka and Ida, members of classes 1A, the first year classes at the Hero School UA, had been attacked and both of their quirks damaged by this individual, known as Izuku Midoriya. Of course, this is all alleged up to this point, as we only have two eyewitnesses towards the fact. However, it still remains that it is possible that Izuku Midoriya, a former expelled student of UA, is out on the loose and dangerous. If you see him, call police immediately. They flip the TV screen off as Shigaraki looks towards Izuku. Well, it seems you're quite famous now, huh? Izuku takes off the mask. Well, that blew my cover, he says, Shigaraki. Bakugo looks towards Izuku, confused. Izuku, what the hell? I've known you for 15 years. You'd never be a hero. There's no way. You've never be a villain. You've always wanted to be a hero. Always. And nothing was going to stop you from becoming one. What happened? What changed? Why? Why are you a villain? UA threw me aside, Bakugo. They told me I could never be what I dreamed of because of accidents. Accidents, Bakugo. And so they cast me aside, threw me away when I still had so much left to give. and I'll never forgive them for that. They will pay, Bakugo. They will pay. Bakugo shakes his head in horror. No. No. You're not the Izuku I knew. No way. There's no way. I guess the Izuku that always wanted to be a hero and always be my friend is gone. His face now dropping, looking on towards Izuku in horror, as all of a sudden a giant fist and leg appear, smashing through the League of Villains hideout. It's Mount Lady. Kamui Woods uses his wood to try and capture all of the League of Villains. However, Izuku, thinking fast, uses his chainsaws and cuts the wood tendrils off of all of the League of Villains, allowing for them to escape with Kirogiri along with Bakugo. Bakugo still being tied up, coming towards them. However, before he could escape, before he could go through the portal, Best Jeanist would wrap his threads around Bakugo and his leg, pulling him back, successfully recapturing Bakugo and rescuing him from the hostage situation. With that, however, they would end up appearing at the warehouse where there was another attack being placed, as All Might would burst through the doors looking for All For One. As All For One would step down from his throne, from his podium, he would look towards All Might, clapping. You've done well, All Might. It appears you've managed to find both my underlings' base, as well as mine. Might I say, that's quite the feat. Let's see what you still have remaining, old friend. All Might looks towards All For One, jumping towards him, reaching back, cocking back his fist, as the two begin fighting in hand-to-hand combat. As they basically go from fist to fist, punching each other back and forth, blow for blow, as each of them trade hits. All For One continuing to deal massive damage to All Might, as the League of Villains are in their own fights, respectively. Izuku stares on, looking towards Kamui Woods, as Kamui looks towards him as well. Izuku almost a perfect opposite of him. Kamui had managed to go across the city, going back, finding the League of Villains after they had transported themselves through a portal. There was no place for Mount Lady and them to stay there with no villains, so they had went to the second location. With Woods staring at Izuku, kind of a small fear written across his face. I mean, Izuku was a chainsaw quirk. What does chainsaws do? Cut trees down. As Kamui Woods would reach out his tendrils, trying to grab and grip Izuku with the wood, surround him with it, Izuku would chop each tendril into small little bits. Izuku wasn't having it. Each slash would go and go, as Izuku would end up cutting Kamui down with ease, slashing him right through the neck, dropping as his wooden stump of a head would hit the ground with a thump. The news anchor and the news helicopter would see Izuku doing this, see him, as there he is, the former disgraced UA student, killing a hero, they say, blurring Kamui Woods' body, as Izuku stares up towards the helicopter, looking towards it, pointing at it. As Toga rushes towards Izuku, handing him a vial of blood, Izuku downs it with ease, almost like a shot. Thanks, Toga, he says, smiling towards her, as we cut back to see All For One and All Might continuing to fight. As the fight moves on, we see Izuku notice that All For One begins struggling. All Might is slowly pushing All For One back. Blow by blow, All For One is getting pushed back and is taking more damage. His respiratory helmet is now completely destroyed as well. Izuku jumps in, jumping into the fight, reaching out with his chainsaws, coming down, reaching towards All Might, slashing him as All Might barely ducks under Izuku's blow, with Izuku cutting off both of All Might's signature yellow bunny ears sticking up from his hair. All Might looks back with a frown, his once normal heroic smile completely disdained for Izuku. "I'm quite disappointed in you, young Midoriya. I thought that you would actually do something with your life after leaving UA. Not turn to the dark side," he says as Izuku just laughs at him. "It's not my fault, All Might. It's all of UA's," he says, jumping towards All Might again, slashing him with his chainsaws as All Might immediately dodges again. All Might going in, completely angered by Izuku, saying that it's the hero's fault for how he turned out, punching Izuku in the leg, shattering the bones as fragments would burst out with Izuku screaming in pain. He would then reach down towards a belt, grabbing a blood gusher, popping it into his mouth as it would regenerate, Izuku not running out of blood anytime soon. All Might looks at Izuku, shocked, as All For One blindsides him with a punch to the head. All Might, falling down to one knee, shocked, knows he needs to end this now, once and for all, but before he can jump in, Izuku goes in and slashes at his arm, chopping his left arm clean off. All Might yells in pain, looking down at it as it pulls out of the now severed forearm. He looks towards Izuku, shocked, punching him across the face, sending Izuku flying back into a building. He looks towards All For One, the weakened All For One, now All Might with only one hand. This is the final chance, his final chance to defeat him. He reaches towards All For One, yelling, "Plus Ultra," he says, slamming his fist right into All For One's heart. As All For One crumbles down, a fist-sized hole, right where his heart should be. As All For One falls to the ground, lifeless. Izuku stares on, yelling, "No!" The person that gave him a chance, the people that gave him a chance, their leader, now dead. He looks over to see Mount Lady placing Shigaraki in handcuffs. It's not over. He looks around again, Toga, Magni, Spinner, all of his friends, including Dabi, being placed in handcuffs. The final battle had been lost. Izuku shakes his head. No, society has to change. Another me can't happen. They can't cast someone aside just because of their quirk, because of accidents. Again, Izuku says, jumping, leaping towards All Might, jumping in with his chainsaws at the ready, slicing All Might's other arm off as All Might looks on his knees towards Izuku, now in his weaker form. The news helicopter staring on a spotlight hanging down, reaching out towards Izuku, illuminating him and All Might. All Might is down. Both his arms are gone. Izuku looks towards him, his head cocked back. You deserve everything that comes for you, All Might. Everything, Izuku says, reaching back his chainsaw, reaching up, lifting it up, swinging it down towards All Might. But it stops. Right before it could chop into All Might, it stops. Izuku looks down, his head shaking towards his body, as a stomach, a giant gaping hole appears right in the center of his body. He looks back to see Bakugo, his best friend, his childhood best friend of 15 years, standing behind him with tears in his eyes, his hand outstretched as if he had just sent an explosion into Izuku. Izuku looks down, reaches towards his blood, trying to grab it. Nothing. The bags had been popped. The blood oozing out. He can't regenerate this time. It wasn't our fault, Izuku. It was never our fault. I know it was an accident. They shouldn't have cast you out. They shouldn't have. You were meant to be the best hero ever, Izuku. The best. We were supposed to be the top 2 heroes together, Bakugo says, tears pooling down out of his eyes. But no. It was never meant to be. His face shifting. You chose this path, Izuku. You chose it. You didn't have to become a villain after being expelled. You could have still become a hero in other ways. You didn't have to be the villain you became. No. Deep down, it seems like you wanted this. Like this is the life you always wanted. To be able to freely use your quirk without restrictions. To be able to cut anybody up and kill them. But as a hero, you couldn't do that. You had to pull your punches. You couldn't slice them up, use your quirk to its fullest potential. So deep down, you always wanted this path. And I think I realize that now. But villains never win, Bakugo says, turning around. And that's why you failed. Izuku crumbles to his knees, looking back, breathing heavy. There's no way. Tears started coming out of Izuku's eyes. He reaches towards Bakugo. Turning around, reaches towards Bakugo, grabbing his cheek. I'm sorry. His hand slips off of Bakugo's face as his body thumps to the floor, lifeless. Izuku Midoriya is no more. His mother sits there watching the TV, tears pooling down her face as the helicopter and the news anchor rejoice. It's over! It's over! The final battle is over! All Might is alive! He's alive! They say as Izuku's body sits there resting, dead. And that is where I'm going to leave off What If Deku was Chainsaw Man. I hope you all did enjoy it. I know I haven't done a villain Deku in quite a while, so I thought this could be the perfect opportunity to do so. And I hope you all did enjoy it. I know it's quite the rare case to see a villain Deku these days, so yeah. I thank you all for watching, and please comment your what if suggestions down the comment sections below. I will be replying to as many comments as possible. I hope you all did enjoy this video once again, and goodbye.